What is up? Welcome to the first edition of Red Chair Reviews. This is the Red Chair. I'm doing the reviews. Fred Whitaker Jr., thank you for joining me. 2020, just those two numbers together, they used to make you think you had perfect vision. They used to think about the show with Andy Rooney back in the day. I don't know if anyone watches that anymore. Either way, 2020 strikes fear into the hearts of people. But if you think back on this year, you might find out there was some really solid music. In fact, I've got a bunch of albums that I kept listening to over and over again. I had some time to myself. And these are ones that I really enjoyed. I still spin them, but I don't think these are going to be albums I'm going to spin for the rest of my life all the time. These are excellent albums, though, so if they're on my honorable mentions list, you will definitely enjoy them, so I hope you check them out. I'm not a dad, but I like this band. Stone Temple Pilots. They released their second album with singer Jeff Goot, and this is entitled Perdita. It's acoustic, but it's solid. There's a lot of wonderful songs. Fare Thee Well really stands out as a particularly great track. And I just think that this band, if you're discounting Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains because they had legendary singers, Scott Weiland and Lane Staley, both long gone, unfortunately, and people are a lot of times, I don't listen to that band anymore. Their singer died. Well, you're missing out on some great music from both these bands. I thought the 2018 STP self-titled with Jeff Goot, his introduction was excellent. I saw them in Cleveland that year, and they were tremendous. He really brought a lot of energy with the band. The DeLeo brothers are doing great music still. Eric Kretz is still laying down some wonderful beats. And I got to tell you, if you haven't heard Perdita yet, or if you're discounting it because it's acoustic, you need to go back and listen to it again, because I think it's really got some really nice STP gems in there that you might be missing out on. As a side note, if you haven't listened to anything from Alice in Chains because Lane's gone, William Duvall is a wonderful singer, and that band is doing tremendous music. So STP and Alice in Chains, my advice to you for 2021 is if you've discounted those bands because those two singers are gone, you are losing out. You're shorting yourself. So check out those two bands and check out Perdita by STP. This next band is a great band. Unfortunately, they fell into the same hole with The Last of Us 2 for me. There was just so much going on chaotically around the world that it was hard for me to really dig into an album that is sorrowful just for the sake that it's just sorrowful. It's honest, but it's sorrowful, and it kind of pulls me into a strange place. And that was The Pineapple Thief and their most recent album, Versions of the Truth. They have Gavin in the band, not Gavin Rossdale. When I say Gavin, you're like, oh, Gavin, not Gavin Rossdale. No, Gavin Harrison. That's the real rock star Gavin. Gavin Rossdale is the second tier Gavin. The top tier Gavin is Gavin Harrison. His amazing drum work that he's done with King Crimson. He's done some wonderful stuff with Porcupine Tree, and he's done some wonderful things with the Pineapple Thief. You need to check it out. But anyway, he's with the Pineapple Thief now. I saw them as well recently, and they were an excellent band. I think it was maybe last year in Lakewood, Ohio, and they were wonderful. But this album, for me, there's some songs like Demons is a standout track. Wonderful, you have to give it a listen. But I think that if you really want a Pineapple Thief album with Gavin that really shows what the band can do, I think Dissolution is probably the one you want to check out from a couple years ago. But Versions of the Truth is good. It's just, I need to spin this once the world has calmed down a little bit. That's the plan. And if that happens, then I think Versions of the Truth will be a much more enjoyable spin every time. Thirdly, I have to give a shout out to Tay-Tay, Taylor Swift. I got to tell you, I'm not a huge Taylor Swift fan. I've never loved everything that she does. She's just kind of like a pop starlet to me at times. I know she did the country thing. I know there's an earnestness to some of her lyrics that seems legit. But I tell you what, these two folky albums she put out here, Folklore, and then just recently just released Evermore, these two albums are good. I know she's got people helping her writing some of her songs and making them seem a little more, I don't want to say indie folk. I don't know if that's what she's necessarily going for. I think she's just really exploring this side of herself again. And I think she's doing a great job. Illicit Affairs is a wonderful song. I know I'm kind of lumping the two albums together, but I feel like they're part of the same thing. They're sister albums in the strictest sense of the word. I feel like she's really exploring her folk writing abilities here. I think she's really finding new terrain. And there's some that's a little, she's not Bob Dylan or anything like that. I'm not saying she's like a Bob Dylan quality lyric writer, but her stuff's pretty good. What's the other song? Champagne Problems, great tune. There's really a lot of, she does some things with Bon Iver and stuff like that. It's really good. If you've cast off Taylor Swift as like just another pop star that's, treading water and just doing the pop starlet thing, I don't feel like these two albums are that. I feel like she's really searching for something here. And yeah, some of the lyrics are, they're not all wonderful. I think that she's really writing some songs from the heart here. And if you haven't listened to them because you just don't like Taylor Swift, you may not know everything she can do. So check it out. I did so very carefully, and I was pleasantly surprised. Being a Mike Patton and Faith No More fanboy, I always have been, I was a little disappointed years ago when he was doing some things with Dillinger Escape Plan, and they officially announced that they were going to have a new singer, and Greg Puciato stepped up. And I saw pictures of this guy, and I'm like, this dude is going to be the biggest meathead. One of the things he was doing was kind of like, he sounds kind of Mike Patton-ish. Man, I was way off. Greg Puciato is just doing some wonderfully amazing things. This new album, Child Soldier, Creator of God, is really powerful stuff. I can't get enough of it. His voice, the music, the performances, everything about this album is excellent. You know, the only thing I could say about it is sonically, I think he's got a similar structure throughout many of his songs, but I do think that he's writing some great stuff. So if you haven't been listening to any of Greg Puciato's solo stuff, you really need to. He's done a couple of albums that are really solid. If you haven't heard Child Soldier, Creator of God by Greg Puciato, do yourself a favor and go seek that out right now. The band that usually wins the award for most times saying their own name is Ice-T's Body Count. But man, Carnivore is a good album. I read an interview years ago that said that Ice-T just wanted to start doing metal because he likes Slayer. And I think that on Carnivore, I think the Body Count just out Slayer, man. They really are doing some things that are, there's just something that's still very honest and open. They deal with a lot of the civil issues, civil rights issues that you may see. And I feel like they deliver it with sincerity. I don't think that this is like Ice-T not being sincere about what he's saying. I think he really takes himself into those moments back when there was the struggles, when he had to fist fight his way by any way he could. Also, as a side note, if you're going to hear one song off of Carnivore, make it The Critical Beatdown, which is so cool because there's this breakdown in the middle that's kind of like a very cool hardcore breakdown, but there's like punching noises in it. It's utterly ridiculous, but yet I love it for some reason. So if you have to hear one song from this album, The Critical Beatdown is the one you need to check out because it is just fist to the face heavy. The next band has been credited with really moving heavy music forward in the last few years, and that band is from Pittsburgh, Code Orange, with their album Underneath. They did cut part of their 2019 tour out so that they could focus on writing, which I was kind of like, really with that? But then it worked out pretty well because this album is excellent. I think it's going to be on a lot of people's top 10 metal lists throughout the year, maybe even just lists overall. I think that You and You Alone is a wonderful track. That's the one that I listen to the most. Swallowing the Rabbit Hole is a great tune. And the title track that ends the album is really solid too. So if you haven't been hearing Code Orange, I think they just recently did like the soundtrack, the entrance music for Raw, WWE Raw. So they're getting some exposure to that too. But I think this band really does try new things all the time. I think they're an exciting band in the heavy metal, hard music scene. And they have electronic elements, all sorts of cool things that really move this band's sound forward every album. So if you haven't heard Code Orange yet, do yourself a favor and check that out. And if you haven't heard Underneath yet, once again, you got to check that out because it was one of my very favorites this year. More dad rock, scary dad rock. Marilyn Manson with We Are Chaos. I really enjoyed this album quite a bit. It was much better than Heaven Upside Down, which I did not really appreciate very much. On the other hand, The Pale Emperor, the album before that, was one of my very favorite Marilyn Manson albums ever. It might be my favorite. It's definitely my top 2 or 3 Manson albums. I just feel like there's something about the groove of that particular album and the way that he was able to deliver on The Pale Emperor. It's just something about those lyrics on that album and just the feel of the album that really stuck with me. And We Are Chaos has a few of those tracks. In particular, I think the title track is really a standout. I could see him playing that song for the rest of his career, however long that may be. Really, it has a kind of like almost like a spooky Bowie vibe going on. That it's the most relevant commercially track that he's written in quite a long time. But if you've not been listening to Marilyn Manson's last few albums, I will say don't go to Heaven Upside Down. Go to The Pale Emperor and listen to that album with fresh ears. It's just got a groove. I know that the drummer has left before this most recent album, but I don't think that Manson really is missing it too much on the sound. We Are Chaos is a solid album and it delivers on a lot of fronts. Next, I'd like to talk to you about Paul Bearer. Oh yes! Okay, not that Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer, the band, the doom metal band. I really feel as though Heartless, their album from 2017, was probably my favorite album that year. And I just think that this newest one here, it's called Forgotten Days. It doesn't quite deliver throughout like Heartless did. There's a couple tracks that I feel as though go a little too long. And I know that that's what they do. They do long songs most of the time, and they're good at it. And very rarely do they lose my attention. Just a couple times on Forgotten Days, I was like, they're not really discovering anything new here. But it's still a really good album. It could be a nice introduction to Paul Bearer if you haven't heard the band yet. But if you want their best work, Heartless is probably it. But Forgotten Days is a solid album and definitely worth your time. Go give it a listen. This next album, I have to give a shout out to my wife, Erin D, because she actually saw this band on some kind of online magazine she was looking at. She's like, have you heard of these guys? They're a death metal band from Moscow called Catalepsy. This band delivers a punishing set called Terror Mortis Est. No Rest, No Peace is probably my favorite song on this entire album. The God of Grave, Land of Million Crosses. Those are both some more solid songs. So if you really like your death metal to be punishing, brutal, at times deathcore, but still has that groove that you really want. It's got all the brutality. It's got some blast beats. It's got everything you could really want in a great death metal band, and it comes from Moscow. Then you definitely want to check out Catalepsy right now. It's a definitely solid listen this year. Next on my list is the 15th release from the Norwegian extreme band Enslaved. It's called Utgard. I believe that's how you say it. I could be saying that incorrectly, and if I am, I'm a moron. It's okay. Either way, I really enjoy this album. I think this band, who started extremely black metal, really had that heavy edge all the time. And I think that over the years, they've woven in a little more harmony, which might turn some fans off, but I personally love it. I like a band like Enslaved that shows this diversity. 1 minute they can be lilting you with these beautiful melodies and strummed guitars, and next thing you know, they're hitting you with these like black metal blast beats, really just these screeching, haunting vocals. So I think they could do everything, and I think the Utgard really shows them at their best. If I had to pick one song, it'd probably be Flight of Thought and Memory. All of these songs, they range around the 5 or 6 minute mark. There's a couple short interludes in there. The entire album is 9 songs and 45 minutes long, which is just about the perfect amount for a band like Enslaved. I think that kind of sound can wear on you if they go too long with it, and they never do. They deliver just the perfect amount on this. So if you have not heard Enslaved, Utgard is a great place to start. If you've heard Enslaved, don't pass up on this, because it really is the band firing on all cylinders. I think you'll enjoy it. This last one, it's hard for me to leave them off, because I really like Mr. Bungle and the Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny. I think it's a great thrash metal album. And that's kind of why I'm leaving it off, because I know that this album is from like 1986, I believe, originally. I know they just re-recorded it. They just added Dave Lombardo, and they added Scott Ian, and what do you know? They've got a great thrash album on their hands. But I think this entire album really does deliver. It's one of the freshest sounding thrash metal albums I've heard in a long time. And I don't think that it wears too thin. Mathematics is my favorite track on here. You'll hear a riff that was used on their self-titled a couple years later called Love is a Fist. You'll hear a riff from there, and it's still one of the best riffs on this album too. I watched their live stream. They delivered. It sounded great. They had fun with it. If you haven't watched the Mr. Bungle live stream from a few months ago of them performing this album, they have fun. They have people just like sit in the back corner like clapping, one guy like, oh, good job, Mr. Bungle. But it's really cool. A lot of Mr. Bungle fans are disappointed because they're like, they want Mr. Bungle to be quirky. They want Mr. Bungle to do more horns. They want Mr. Bungle to do more like kind of like California surf rock, like the album California. Like, this band can do whatever they want to do, and that's why I think that Mr. Bungle is such a great band. So don't hate on them because they got so much diversity. Just accept this re-recording of an old demo, which was worth hundreds of dollars, and you couldn't get it on cassette very easily. And now it's readily available in multiple versions of vinyl. I know because my wife bought them all. And that is it. Those are my honorable mentions. These are albums that I really liked. Not quite enough to put them on my top 10, but really enjoyable. Nonetheless, if you haven't heard any of these albums, don't miss out on them. Go back. Go listen to Enslaved. Go listen to that Mr. Bungle album. Go listen to the Tay-Tay albums. I'm telling you, it's not bad. Check it out. Once again, thanks for tuning in. Red Chair Reviews. I'll be bringing you a lot more stuff here throughout the course of this coming year. There will be a top 10 albums dropping here in the next day or two. I will also have my favorite songs of the year. And then we're going on with all new content. So please, like, subscribe, watch what I've got to do. Give me some suggestions at the bottom. Comment. Tell me what you loved. What albums did I miss in my honorable mentions? And maybe they're going to show up on my top 10. But if there's any of these you disagree with, feel free to tell me in the comments. If you agree, comment. And, that's just like my opinion, man.